Hello, my name is Blake Shepard, 32 years old, and I live in Las Vegas, Nevada, the city of lights, burning dreams, and bitter failures. I am the eldest child in a wealthy family where the Shepard name is synonymous with success, lavish hotels, and dazzling casinos that shine through the night. But if you ask anyone in my family, they'll tell you I'm the failure, the black sheep of the lineage, the eldest son who never lived up to expectations. And believe me, I've heard those words enough times for them to be etched into my mind, like a scar that never heals. I was born in a sprawling mansion on the outskirts of Las Vegas where every corner of the house exuded opulence. My father, Richard Shepard, is a tough man with a piercing gaze and a voice that could make anyone tremble. He is the chairman of Shepard Enterprises, a business empire that owns a string of hotels and casinos stretching across Nevada. My mother, Eleanor, is a refined woman, always appearing in expensive dresses with a perfect smile, but deep in her eyes I've always sensed disappointment whenever she looks at me. Then there are Preston and Sierra, my younger siblings, the prized gems of the family, always cherished and trusted by our parents. Preston, 28, is a talented lawyer with a confident smile and sharp wit in every word he speaks. Sierra, 26, is a renowned interior designer with major contracts from five-star hotels. And me? I'm Blake, the one who graduated from a prestigious business school but has never amounted to anything worthwhile. From a young age, I felt the weight of expectations pressing down on me. As the eldest, I was expected to take over my father's empire to become a better version of him. During tense family dinners, my father would often say to me, "Blake, you are the future of the Shepard family. Don't let me down." But every time I heard those words, I felt my heart tighten. I didn't want to be just a shadow of my father. I wanted to create something of my own, a unique mark, something people would remember when they heard the name Blake Shepard, not just Richard Shepard's son. I tried. I really did. In college, I was an outstanding student, always at the top of my class. I dreamed of building my own business independent of the Shepard name. After graduating, I dove into startup ventures with all the passion of youth. First, there was a small coffee shop in downtown Las Vegas with the idea of combining an artistic space with live music. I spent months designing the menu, choosing furniture, even painting the walls myself. But the shop lasted only 6 months before shutting down due to a lack of customers. Then I tried my hand at a tech app, a platform to connect street artists with tourists. I poured thousands of dollars into it, only to realize the market wasn't ready for my idea. Next came a high-end fashion boutique, where I hoped to bring unique designs to life. But once again, I failed. Customers didn't show up, and I lost nearly all my savings. With each failure, I faced mockery from my family. My father never said it outright, but his eyes, those cold, disappointed eyes, said it all. My mother was gentler, but her words like, "Blake, why don't you try working for your father's company? It would be easier," made me feel like a child who couldn't stand on his own. Preston and Sierra treated me even worse. During family gatherings, Preston would tease, "Blake, what's the next big thing you're opening? A bakery, maybe?" Sierra would giggle and chime in, "Or a film production company. Oh, I bet it'll go bankrupt in 3 months." They said these things as if they were just jokes, but I knew deep down they truly believed I was a failure. I don't entirely blame them. I understand why they think that way. While Preston and Sierra always succeeded, Preston with his high-profile lawsuits, Sierra with her designs praised in the press, I was just the clumsy older brother always failing at his grand dreams. But that doesn't mean their words didn't hurt. Every jab, every scornful look felt like a knife cutting deeper into my self-esteem. Some nights I'd lie in bed in my small rented apartment on the outskirts, staring at the ceiling, wondering if I really was as useless as they said. Was I born just to be a backdrop for other people's success? But deep down, I still believe I can do something meaningful. I don't want to be just an employee in my father's company living in his shadow. I want to stand on my own to prove I'm not the failure they think I am. I want them to look at me and admit they were wrong. Maybe it's arrogance, maybe it's stubbornness, but it's the only flame that keeps me moving forward, even when everything seems to be falling apart. My apartment is a modest place, far from the extravagance of the family mansion. It has a small bedroom, a cramped kitchen, and an old second-hand sofa I bought from a thrift store. But it's where I feel free, where I can be myself without being compared to Preston or Sierra. I often sit by the window looking out at the twinkling lights of Las Vegas, dreaming of the day I'll create something that makes this city turn its head. But every time I start a new project, the fear of failure creeps in, whispering in my ear, "You'll fail again, Blake. You're not good enough." I've thought about giving up, I really have. Once after my tech app failed, I sat in my small office staring at the red loss figures on my computer screen, thinking maybe my parents were right. Maybe I should give up my dreams, take a job at my father's company and live a safe, predictable life. But every time that thought creeps in, a part of me screams in protest. I don't want to live a life I don't believe in. I want to rise on my own, no matter how hard the path may be. My family wasn't always cold. There were moments when I was younger when I felt their love. I remember evenings when my father took me to baseball games, just the two of us, and he'd tell me about the early days of building Shepherd Enterprises from nothing. My mother used to sit with me reading fairy tales, telling me I could be anything I wanted. But as I grew older and the failures piled up, that warmth faded, replaced by heavy expectations and sharp criticism. Las Vegas, with all its glamour, is a strange place to grow up. This city is full of people chasing dreams, but it's also full of broken ones. I've seen people come here hoping to change their lives, only to leave empty-handed. I don't want to be one of them, but with every failure I feel myself inching closer to that fate. Then came a fateful day when a call from Jake changed everything. Jake was a friend I met after college. We weren't particularly close, mostly meeting to discuss business deals. Jake called one late afternoon while I was sitting on my worn-out sofa staring at an unpaid electric bill. His voice on the phone was brimming with excitement, as if he'd just struck gold. "Blake, I've got something for you," he said, his words quick and urgent. "A real opportunity. You want to hear it?" I sighed, responding lazily. "Jake, if this is another crazy idea like opening a mobile taco stand, I'm out." I was all too familiar with Jake's pipe dreams, which usually ended with him pocketing a fat commission while I lost money. No, this is different," Jake laughed loudly. "I'm talking about real estate. An old gas station on the outskirts near Route 95. Dirt cheap, only $20,000. Can you believe it? A real steal." I sat up straighter, not exactly excited but curious. A gas station? In the middle of nowhere? Jake, who buys an abandoned gas station in a place even coyotes don't bother visiting? "That's the point, Blake," Jake said, his voice as smooth as a seasoned salesman's. "The state's planning to build a new highway right through that area, and I got a tip from an inside source. A big real estate conglomerate is eyeing the place. They're planning to build a resort, maybe even a shopping center. That gas station will be right in the middle of it all. You buy it now, fix it up a bit, and sell it for 10 times the price. Or run it yourself and turn it into a gold mine." I went silent for a moment, trying to process the information. Jake always had a way of making everything sound like a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, but I knew he wasn't entirely trustworthy. Jake was a broker, but not the kind of honest broker you'd want to work with. He was tall, with slicked back hair, a dazzling smile, and always wore cheap suits tailored to look more expensive than they were. "Jake, I don't have $20,000, I said, my voice weary. "My account's in the red, and I still owe this month's rent." "Then borrow it," Jake shot back as if it were obvious. "Blake, you're a shepherd. Your family has money. Ask your parents or your siblings. This is your chance to prove you're not, well, you know what they say about you." I felt the blood rush to my face. Jake knew all about my family's mockery, and he wasn't above using it to push my buttons. "Don't bring my family into this," I snapped. "I'm not asking them for money. You know what they think of me." All right, Jake soothed, but I could picture the smirk on his face. But listen, Blake, I'm doing this for you. I could sell this gas station to anyone, but I want you to have this opportunity. $20,000 is a bargain. I negotiated with the landowner to get it down to this price. They want to sell fast and I'm holding it for you. But you've got to decide quickly or they'll sell to someone else. I closed my eyes, trying to think. An abandoned gas station in the middle of nowhere sounded like a crazy idea. But Jake's talk of the highway and real estate projects made me waver. I'd failed so many times, and the thought of a chance to turn my life around, to prove I wasn't a failure, made my heart race. But $20,000, that was a fortune for me at the time. Let me think about it, I said. No time, Blake, Jake replied, his voice growing more urgent. I'm serious, there's someone else asking about it. I'm only prioritizing you because we're friends. You've got 48 hours, call me back when you decide, okay? The call ended and I sat there staring at my phone. Part of me wanted to call back immediately and say no. But another part, the part desperate to prove itself, couldn't stop thinking about the possibility. A gas station, an opportunity, a chance to stand tall in front of my family and say, I did it. That night I couldn't sleep. I paced my apartment, my mind swirling with numbers and possibilities. I didn't have $20,000, but I could borrow it. I had a few wealthy friends who could lend me the money with a snap of their fingers. But what made me hesitate most wasn't the money. It was Jake. I knew he was a smooth talker, and his words were hard to fully trust. The next morning, I decided to check out the gas station. Jake met me at a small cafe before taking me to the site. When I walked in, he was already there, dressed in a gray suit, sipping coffee and scrolling through his phone. Blake, you made it, he grinned, standing to slap my shoulder. I knew you wouldn't pass this up. On the drive to the gas station, Jake wouldn't stop talking. He went on about the highway, the investors pouring money into the area, how this gas station would be a diamond in the rough that I could turn into gold. But when we arrived, my heart sank. The gas station sat on a dusty road far from downtown Las Vegas. It looked like a ruin. The pumps were rusted, the convenience store's windows were shattered, and the roof looked like it would collapse with a strong gust of wind. Weeds grew wild around it, and an old sign reading Desert Star hung precariously, its letters nearly faded. This wasn't a diamond in the rough. It was a pile of junk. Jake, are you kidding me? I turned to him, trying to keep my voice calm. This is worth $20,000? Jake laughed, but I noticed his eyes dart away. Blake, you've got to see the bigger picture. Don't you see the potential? When the highway opens, this place will be the center of everything. You just need to invest a little to fix it up and you'll have a gold mine. Jake, be honest, I pressed. Are you sure this is a steal? Or are you just trying to make a commission? He clutched his chest, feigning offense. Blake, you think I'm that kind of guy? I'm your friend. I'm doing this for you. $20,000 is the price I negotiated down from $30,000. The landowner wants to sell fast, and I fought to keep this price for you. I wanted to believe him, but something felt off. The way he spoke too quickly, the way he avoided my eyes. It all made me uneasy. But then I thought of my family, their mockery, my father's disappointed gaze. I thought of all the times I'd failed, and this opportunity, however crazy, might be the gamble that let me win big and prove myself. It took me 2 days to scrape together the money. I borrowed from an old friend, promising to pay him back soon. I also took out a loan against my apartment. Finally, I had the $20,000. I called Jake and told him I'd buy. Awesome, Jake cheered over the phone. You won't regret this, Blake. This is your turning point. The sale went through quickly. Jake took me to a real estate lawyer's office where the lawyer seemed rushed and asked few questions. I signed the papers, handed over the money, and received the keys to the gas station. As I held them in my hand, I felt a strange mix of excitement and fear. This was the first time I owned something entirely my own. But the joy didn't last. When I told my family about my decision during a rare family dinner I was forced to attend, their reactions were exactly as I expected. My father let out a hoarse, mocking laugh. An abandoned gas station? Blake, are you serious? What have you thrown your money into this time? My mother tried to be gentler, but her voice betrayed her disappointment. Blake, you should work for your father's company. Why do you keep chasing these foolish ideas? Preston, as usual, didn't miss his chance. Blake, I bet that gas station will be the graveyard of your career. You should name it Blake's Tomb. Sierra giggled, adding, I'll design a sign for you, free of charge. I sat there, gripping my fork and knife tightly, trying to suppress my anger. I wanted to scream, to tell them I'd prove them wrong. But I stayed silent, swallowing my rage, and told myself I would succeed. A few days later, I drove out to the gas station carrying a toolbox and a sliver of hope. As I stepped into the convenience store, the smell of dust and mildew hit me. I looked around at the empty shelves, the cracks in the walls, and a creeping sense of doubt began to take hold. I paid $20,000 for this. I started to wonder if Jake had been honest about its value. Weeks later, I discovered the bitter truth. A friend in the real estate business revealed that the gas station had been listed for just $3,000. I froze. $3,000. Before Jake helped me negotiate, before he manipulated the numbers and watched me sign the papers with that fake smile. The whole negotiation was a sham. Jake had inflated the price by multiples, pocketing the difference and exploiting my trust. I felt betrayed. The friend I thought was supporting me turned out to be a con artist. I stood in the Desert Star convenience store, gripping my phone tightly. I dialed Jake's number. It rang, then went straight to voicemail. I tried a few more times, each unanswered ring like a knife twisting deeper into my pride. Jake didn't pick up. He had vanished like a ghost in the Nevada desert, leaving me with this wreck and a heart full of wounds. I slumped into an old chair in the convenience store, my mind reeling. The smell of dust and old motor oil filled my nose, a reminder that I was stuck with this gas station. A pile of junk I'd paid multiples over its worth for. I wondered how foolish I'd been to trust Jake. He'd hit my weak spot, my desperation to prove myself, my fear of my family's scorn. He knew how badly I wanted a chance, and he used it against me. I thought of the times he laughed, slapped my shoulder, called me buddy. It was all an act. I'd let him manipulate me like a puppet, and now I was paying the price. I looked out through the broken window, considering giving up. I could sell this place for whatever I could get, return to Las Vegas, and beg for a job at my father's company. At least I wouldn't have to worry about money anymore. But then I thought of my father's gaze, Preston's mocking smile, Sierra's giggles. If I gave up now, they'd have a reason to laugh at me forever. I'd have no shred of dignity left. I stood up, wiped the sweat from my forehead, and looked around the wreckage. Even if Jake had scammed me, even if I'd made a mistake, I knew I couldn't stop. Desert Star was my last chance, and I had to fight to the end. The days that followed were a grueling string of hard labor. I started by cleaning the convenience store, where dust and cobwebs had claimed every corner. The empty shelves, coated in a thick layer of grime, looked like relics of a bygone era. I brought an old broom, a bucket of water, and some cheap cleaning supplies from a nearby store. I scrubbed the floors, wiped down the remaining broken glass panes, and tried to patch the leaking roof with some makeshift metal sheets. Every sweep of the broom, every drop of sweat that hit the floor felt like a declaration of war against the doubts gnawing at me. The Desert Star gas station, true to its name, stood alone in the Nevada desert. Route 95, which ran alongside it, was desolate, with only the occasional truck roaring by, leaving a cloud of dust in its wake. I began to question whether Jake had been honest about the highway. The thought that I'd been deceived not just about the price but about the land's potential sent shivers down my spine. But every time doubt crept in, I told myself, "You've come this far, Blake. You can't turn back." I focused on fixing things bit by bit, The gas pumps were completely broken, their pipes rusted beyond repair. I didn't have the money to replace them, so I bought some used parts from a nearby junkyard and taught myself how to fix them through online videos. I'd never been a mechanic, but I learned fast. Some days I worked from early morning until midnight, my hands and arms covered in scratches and motor oil. But I didn't stop. Every time I got something working, a pump humming back to life, a light bulb flickering on in the store, I felt like I was reclaiming a piece of the self-respect I'd lost. Then one afternoon, while I was wrestling with a leaking water pipe under the store's floor, everything changed. That pipe had been driving me crazy for a week. Water kept seeping out, flooding a corner of the floor, and I couldn't afford to call a plumber. I decided to tackle it myself, despite knowing nothing about plumbing. Armed with a wrench and a small shovel, I started digging up the floor. The old cracked concrete floor took effort to break apart, and I had to use all my strength to chip away at it. Sweat streamed down my face, dust clung to my clothes, but I didn't stop. I needed to fix that damn pipe or the whole store would turn into a swamp. After hours of digging, I heard an odd sound. Not the crack of concrete, but a sharp clank, like I'd hit something solid. I stopped, panting, and looked down. Beneath the broken concrete, I saw a wooden panel, old and darkened, unlike the rest of the floor. It looked like a small trapdoor embedded in the foundation. My heart raced. What was this? A trapdoor? A secret storage space? Or just a useless piece of wood forgotten under the floor? I knelt down, brushing away the dust and debris with my hands. The wood was secured with rusted nails, loosened by years of neglect. I grabbed my wrench and pried them out one by one, my heart pounding like it was trying to leap out of my chest. When I lifted the final piece of wood, I saw a dark void below. A passageway, deep and cold, leading into darkness. A damp breeze carrying the scent of old wood and something like aged wine hit my face. I turned on my phone's flashlight, its weak beam illuminating a rickety wooden staircase that looked like it would collapse under the slightest touch. I stood there, hesitating. Part of me wanted to cover the panel back up, finish fixing the pipe, and forget about this. But another part, the curious part, the part hungry for something unexpected, urged me to go down. The stairs creaked under each step, and I clung to the wooden railing to keep from falling. When I reached the bottom, I raised my flashlight, and what I saw stopped me in my tracks. The cellar wasn't large, maybe 200 square feet, but it was packed with wooden crates and old iron shelves lined with hundreds of wine bottles, covered in dust and cobwebs. Some bottles lay horizontally on the shelves, others were stacked in large wooden crates, as if someone had carefully stored them here and then forgotten them. The labels on the bottles were faded, but I could still make out a few. The smudged old-fashioned ink hinted at names that carried an air of prestige. Chateau Petrus, Dom Perignon, Lafite Rothschild. My heart pounded faster as the flashlight beam swept over the bottles, each one placed with care, like a treasure. This cellar wasn't a storage room for junk. It was a forgotten vault of riches buried under the dust of time. I moved slowly, as if afraid that a single abrupt movement could shatter something precious. I knelt down, picked up a bottle, and carefully wiped the dust off its label. Under the faint glow of my flashlight, I saw the words, Chateau Petrus 1921. I wasn't a wine expert, but I knew enough to understand this wasn't ordinary wine. I set the bottle down, trembling. What was this? How could a stash of wine like this be hidden under the floor of an abandoned gas station in the middle of the Nevada desert? I swept my flashlight across the cellar, roughly counting hundreds of bottles, not to mention the large wooden crates stacked in the corner. Some crates had carved inscriptions, but I couldn't make them out in the dim light. I felt like I'd stumbled into a mystery, a story buried long ago. I sat down on the cellar floor, trying to organize my thoughts. This gas station had been abandoned for decades, long before Jake conned me into buying it. Perhaps it had been forgotten since the Prohibition era in the 1920s, when the production and sale of alcohol were banned. I'd read about that time. Bootleggers running secret operations, hiding wine and liquor in underground cellars to evade the police. Could this be one of those stashes? A place where smugglers hid premium wines only to never return for some reason? I stood up, determined to investigate further. I pulled out a wooden crate, hearing the wood creak under its weight. Inside were more bottles, some still sealed with red wax, as if they'd been bottled yesterday. I picked up another bottle, this time a Dom Perignon labeled 1928. I'd heard my father talk about auctions in Las Vegas where collectors paid hundreds of thousands of dollars for a single rare bottle. If each bottle in this cellar was worth that much, the entire stash could be worth tens of millions. But even as that thought sparked, a wave of doubt pulled me back to reality. I was Blake Shepard, the failure, the one who always stumbled when opportunity came close. Was this just another illusion? Were these bottles truly valuable, or were they just fakes, abandoned because they were worthless? I didn't know enough about wine to judge for myself, and the thought that I might be deluding myself sent a chill through me. But I couldn't dismiss the possibility. I climbed back up the stairs to the convenience store and grabbed an old notebook from my tool bag. I started taking notes, counting the bottles and crates and jotting down the labels I could read. My hand shook as I wrote, not from the cold, but from a mix of excitement and fear. I didn't know what to do next, but I knew I needed someone knowledgeable to verify this. That night, I brought a few bottles back to my apartment, carefully placing them on the kitchen table as if they were precious gems. I opened my laptop and started researching vintage wines, the Prohibition era, and the value of bottles like Chateau Petrus and Dom Perignon. What I found made me almost unable to believe my eyes. A Chateau Petrus 1921 had sold for $150,000 at an auction in New York. A Dom Perignon 1928, if intact, could easily fetch $80,000. And these weren't just one or two bottles. I had hundreds, maybe thousands in that cellar. If even a fraction of them were real, the stash could be worth tens of millions. I sat there, staring at the computer screen, feeling like the world was spinning around me. This was the opportunity I'd waited for my entire life. An unimaginable miracle. But alongside the excitement, a new fear crept in. Was I capable of capitalizing on this? Or would I fail again like every time before? I closed the laptop, stood up, and paced my cramped apartment. I needed a plan. I couldn't just take these bottles to an auction without knowing if they were real. I needed to find an expert, but how could I contact someone without revealing this secret? I'd learned my lesson from Jake. Blind trust could cost me everything. I decided to keep this quiet, at least until I knew what I was dealing with. The next morning, I returned to Desert Star with a completely different mindset. The cellar was no longer just a damp, dilapidated space. It was a potential treasure trove, a chance to change my life. I spent the entire day in the cellar inspecting every bottle, every crate. Some bottles were broken, their contents long dried up, but most were intact, their red wax seals still firm. While examining a crate in the corner of the cellar, I found something else. A small notebook, its leather cover rotting, tucked between two crates. I carefully opened it, the yellowed, fragile pages threatening to tear. Inside were handwritten notes detailing transactions, dates, quantities of bottles, and a list of recipients' names. I realized this gas station had likely been a hub in a bootlegging network long ago. I pictured men in long coats driving old trucks in the dead of night, hiding bottles under floorboards and stashing crates in this crumbling cellar. Desert Star wasn't just a gas station. It was a piece of history, a fragment of a chaotic and mysterious era. I decided to contact a wine expert, but would do so discreetly. I searched online and reached out to an auction house in Las Vegas that specialized in vintage wines. I didn't reveal details, only saying I had a few old bottles and wanted them appraised. The man on the phone, with a deep, professional voice, agreed to meet me in a few days, but asked me to bring a few bottles to his office. I hesitated. Taking the bottles out of the cellar meant risking exposure, but I had no choice. I needed certainty. I selected 3 bottles, a Chateau Petrus 1921, a Dom Perignon 1928, and another with a handwritten label, carefully packing them in a small wooden box I found in the cellar. As I left the gas station, I felt like I was carrying a bomb. Every time my car hit a pothole on Route 95, I flinched, terrified the bottles would break. I drove slowly, eyes glued to the road, my heart pounding. The meeting with the wine expert took place on a Tuesday morning at an auction house office in downtown Las Vegas. I walked in, clutching the wooden box tightly, feeling as though every eye in the room was fixed on me. The man I met, Mr. Henry Caldwell, was a renowned wine expert with silver hair and gold-rimmed glasses. He had a sharp gaze, as if he could appraise an entire person with a single glance. I set the box on the table, trying to keep my voice steady as I explained that I had stumbled upon a few old bottles in a property I'd recently purchased. I didn't mention Desert Star or the cellar. I didn't want anyone to know too much, not yet. Mr. Caldwell opened the box, carefully lifting each bottle, examining the labels and seals under the light. His face showed no emotion, but I noticed his hand tremble slightly as he held the Chateau Petrus 1921. "You say you found these bottles in a property?" he asked, his voice low but tinged with skepticism. I nodded, trying to maintain a neutral expression, though my heart was pounding like a drum. After a while, Mr. Caldwell sat down, removed his glasses, and looked at me. "Mr. Blake, I don't know where you found these bottles, but I can tell you they're genuine, and they're extremely rare. A Chateau Petrus 1921, if in good condition, could easily fetch $150,000 at auction. The Dom Perignon 1928 is no less impressive, likely between $80,000 and $100,000. As for this handwritten label," he paused, inspecting it closer. "I'd need to verify further, but it could be part of a special batch from the Prohibition era. If you have more bottles like these, you're sitting on a treasure." I felt the blood rush to my head as if the world was tilting. "You're saying, how much?" I stammered, trying to process the numbers. "These 3 bottles alone could bring in several $100,000, Mr. Caldwell said, his tone as calm as if he were discussing the weather. "But if you have more, like a collection, the value could reach millions. How many more bottles do you have?" I hesitated. I wanted to tell the truth, that I had hundreds of bottles, dozens of crates, but the memory of Jake made me cautious. "I'm not sure," I replied, keeping my tone vague. "I need to check again. But can you help me appraise and sell them?" Mr. Caldwell smiled, the first time during our meeting. "Of course, Mr. Blake, but I'll need to see the entire collection. And we'll need to do this properly. Verify, appraise, and organize an auction. If you agree, I can reach out to some international collectors. They'll pay top dollar for bottles like these." I left the office feeling both exhilarated and anxious. Mr. Caldwell agreed to keep the information confidential, but I knew word would spread eventually. Las Vegas is a small town when it comes to big rumors. I returned to Desert Star that afternoon, checked the lock on the cellar entrance, and started planning. I needed to secure the wine stash, hire a security team, and install cameras. But I didn't have the money for all that, not yet. Over the next few weeks, I worked tirelessly. I contacted Mr. Caldwell, bringing him a few more bottles to verify, and he confirmed that most were in excellent condition. He estimated the stash's value could reach $50 million, if not more. The figure left me stunned. I, Blake Shepard, the one my family called the shame of the lineage, was sitting on a treasure that could change my entire life. I decided to start with a small auction, selling just 10 bottles to test the market and raise some initial funds. Mr. Caldwell organized the auction at a luxurious Las Vegas hotel, inviting a select group of wealthy collectors from around the world. I stood in the corner of the room wearing a borrowed suit, feeling out of place among the men and women in expensive attire. When the Chateau Petrus 1921 went up on the block, the starting bid was $100,000. Within 10 minutes, it sold for $180,000. In total, the 10 bottles brought in over $1.2 million. I could hardly believe my eyes as I looked at the figures on the contract. With the money from the auction, I began transforming Desert Star into something greater. First, I paid off my debts, the loans from friends, the mortgage on my apartment, and the stack of bills piling up in my small home. I hired a security team to guard the gas station, installed cameras and an alarm system to protect the cellar. I fixed the leaking roof, replaced the rusted gas pumps, and turned the convenience store into a modern space with a high-end wine counter at its center. I selected a few bottles from the cellar, displaying them in sleek glass cases like a small museum telling the story of the Prohibition era. Each bottle was a piece of history, and I wanted customers to feel that. Over the next 6 months, I worked closely with Mr. Caldwell, organizing 3 more auctions. In total, I earned over $30 million from these sales, a figure that left me dizzy every time I checked my bank account. With that money, I bought more land around Desert Star, based on the information about the new highway Jake had mentioned. It turned out, at least that part of his story wasn't a lie. In early 2023, construction on the highway began, and investors started eyeing the area. I began dreaming bigger, not just a gas station, but a small resort where travelers could stop, enjoy fine wine, and hear the story of the desert's treasure. But as Desert Star began to shine, another challenge emerged: my family. The news about the wine stash couldn't stay hidden forever, and soon enough they found out. Their reactions were a mix of shock, envy, and a belated attempt to insert themselves into my success. I knew they'd reach out, but I didn't expect it to happen so quickly, or in a way that left me both heartbroken and furious. My mother called first on an evening while I was checking the new gas pumps. Her voice trembled, a stark contrast to her usual sarcasm. "Blake, I heard about the wine stash, about Desert Star. Is it true? Did you really find all that?" I stood in the convenience store, gripping the phone, feeling old anger resurface. "Yes, Mom, it's true, I did it." "Oh, Blake, I'm so proud," she said, but I could hear the strain in her voice, as if she were playing a role she wasn't used to. "Your father wants to meet you. We need to talk about this. A treasure like that. You need support. Shepherd Enterprises can help you manage it. Bring Desert Star into the family's hotel network." I let out a dry laugh, feeling as though a rock were pressing on my chest. "Mom, now the family wants to help? After you all called this gas station the graveyard of my career? After you, Dad, Preston, and Sierra mocked me every time I tried to do something?" "Blake, don't say that," she replied, her voice rising as if I'd touched a nerve. "We were just worried about you. Your father thinks this is a chance for the family to work together. You shouldn't do this alone." I hung up, unwilling to hear more. My mother's words weren't support. They were an attempt to control, to pull me back under the shadow of Shepherd Enterprises. They weren't there when I scrubbed the floors, when I wrestled with rusted pipes, when I stayed up all night worrying. Now that I'd succeeded, they wanted a piece of it. I felt hurt, but more than that, I realized I didn't need them anymore. Desert Star was mine, and I wouldn't let anyone take it away. Preston and Sierra reached out soon after, but not to apologize. Preston sent a long text, starting with a fake congratulation. "Blake, who'd have thought you'd get so lucky? $1 million wine stash. But be careful, managing big money isn't easy. If you need, we can sit down and talk investments." I read the message, feeling the blood rush to my face. Lucky? He thought this was all luck? I didn't reply, just deleted the message. Sierra called, her voice as sweet as honey. "Blake, I hear Desert Star is a big deal now. I could help redesign the store, make it more upscale. I know some great contractors, and I'd do it at a discount for you." I declined immediately, keeping my tone cold. I didn't need their help, not when it came with such obvious ulterior motives. The final confrontation was with my father. He summoned me to his office at Shepherd Enterprises headquarters, a place I'd avoided like a storm. When I walked in, he sat behind his massive desk, his gaze no longer cold but tinged with curiosity and reluctant respect. "Blake," he said, his voice low, "I was wrong to doubt you. This wine stash, it's a miracle. But you need to understand something this big is beyond your ability. Let Shepherd Enterprises help you manage it. We have the resources, the experience. I looked him straight in the eye for the first time in my life, not feeling small. Thank you, Dad, but I can handle it. Desert Star is mine and I'm keeping it that way. He went silent, only nodding, but I knew he wasn't pleased. To him, everything had to belong to the family, to the Shepherd name. But this time, I wasn't the boy trying to please him. I was Blake Shepherd, the one who turned an abandoned gas station into a miracle, and I wouldn't let anyone take that away. In the months that followed, I poured my entire heart into expanding Desert Star. With over $30 million from the wine auctions, I had enough capital to get started, but I knew I needed a strategic partner to turn my dream into reality. I briefly considered working with Shepherd Enterprises, my father's company, but that thought was quickly extinguished. My father didn't want a true partnership. He wanted control, to fold Desert Star into the family's empire where I'd once again become a shadow under the Shepherd name. I couldn't let that happen. After years of being mocked and doubted, I wanted to stand on my own, to prove I could succeed without relying on my family. Instead, I reached out to Nevada Horizons, a major real estate and entertainment company, a direct competitor of Shepherd Enterprises. Nevada Horizons was known for bold projects in Las Vegas, from luxurious resorts to modern casinos. I met their CEO, Miss Carla Martinez, in mid-2020 at an upscale restaurant in downtown Las Vegas. Miss Martinez was a sharp woman with keen eyes and a smile that was both friendly and calculating. I pitched my idea, an entertainment complex at Desert Star, featuring a fine dining restaurant specializing in wine, a boutique desert-themed hotel, and a small casino inspired by the Prohibition era, drawing from the story of my wine stash. Blake, I have to say I'm impressed, Miss Martinez said, sipping her wine. Your story, from an abandoned gas station to a multi-million-dollar treasure, is something customers will love, and Desert Star's location right on the new highway is a golden opportunity. We want to partner with you, but are you sure you want to take this path? I hear your father wasn't pleased when you turned down Shepherd Enterprises. I smiled, trying to hide a flicker of tension. Miss Martinez, I respect my father, but Desert Star is mine. I want to build it my way. Miss Martinez nodded, her eyes showing approval. I understand. We'll provide support with funding, design, and operations, but you'll be the one leading. This is your project, Blake. The deal was signed. Nevada Horizons invested $20 million, combined with $10 million of my own, to begin construction on the Desert Star Entertainment Complex. Throughout the construction process, I worked 16-hour days without tiring. Every brick laid, every light installed, was a step toward proving I was more than the failure of the Shepherd family. I was building something of my own, a legacy no one could take away. By June 2024, the Desert Star Entertainment Complex officially opened. The ceremony was dazzling, with hundreds of guests, from journalists to wine collectors and tourists. The restaurant, named Vintage Haven, served gourmet dishes paired with modern wines, but its centerpiece was a display counter showcasing a few bottles from my treasure, housed in glass cases like precious jewels. The boutique hotel, with 50 rooms, embraced a modern desert aesthetic, each room decorated with details evoking the Prohibition era. The Speakeasy Star Casino was the highlight, with poker tables and slot machines designed to resemble secret speakeasies, attracting both tourists and locals. Desert Star quickly became a renowned destination in Nevada. Articles hailed it as the new gem of the desert, and tourists flocked to take photos with the Desert Star sign, hear the story of the wine stash, and experience the unique atmosphere I'd created. I hired a professional team, from chefs to casino managers, and for the first time I felt not just like an entrepreneur but a leader. My life had turned a new, brighter page. I no longer lived in the cramped apartment on the outskirts of Las Vegas. I bought a spacious house in a quiet suburban area with a view of the desert, where I could sit on the porch each evening watching the lights of Desert Star twinkle in the distance. I no longer woke up with the fear of failure or haunted by my father's disappointed gaze or Preston and Sierra's mockery. I found peace within myself, not because of money or fame, but because I'd proven my worth, not to my family but to myself. Desert Star was more than an entertainment complex. It was a testament to perseverance, faith, and the ability to see value in what others overlook. I still kept in touch with my family, but minimally. I forgave them, but I didn't forget the scars they left. My father remained displeased that I'd partnered with Nevada Horizons, but he could do nothing but watch my success from afar. And I, Blake Shepard, was no longer the failure of the family. I was the one who turned an abandoned gas station into an icon, and I would continue building my dream, brick by brick. That's the story of my life, from being called the shame of the Shepard lineage, a failure with shattered dreams, to the man who built Desert Star, a dazzling entertainment complex in the Nevada desert, a symbol of perseverance and belief in oneself. And if you ask me for advice, I'd say this: never let doubts or mockery define you. The greatest opportunities can come from the most unexpected places, like an abandoned gas station or a dusty cellar. Believe in yourself, seize those chances, and don't fear failure, because sometimes those failures lead you to the treasure of your life. Keep pushing forward, and I believe you'll succeed on the path you've chosen.